So, on this fourth Sunday of Advent, the newest candle lit in this Advent wreath is, as Sarah so eloquently said, the candle of love. And so, obviously, I had to choose 1 Corinthians 13, but I'm hoping we will be able to get more from it than what you might usually hear at a wedding, right? In his first letter to the church in the city of Corinth, so in the book that we call 1 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul writes a lot about spiritual leadership and spiritual gifts. In chapter 12, we hear this really long extract in which Paul talks about how every member of the church has a gift and every member and their gift are important. So he says, the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need for you, nor the head to the feet, I have no need of you, and so on. And despite his emphasis on the importance of all the gifts, Paul ends that discussion in chapter 12 with kind of a hierarchy of the significance of various gifts. And he encourages people to strive for the greater gifts. And just after that verse comes a little sentence that is really, 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 really important, but frequently overlooked. We overlook it because it ties chapter 12 and chapter 13 together. But we so often hear these chapters separately that we miss the link. Now, of course, this reading is very well known, right? When Sam was reading, could you pretty much anticipate what was coming next? If Paul's publisher were to put out a volume of Paul's greatest hits, 1 Corinthians 13 would choose itself, alongside, if it was a full Bible thing, I guess Psalm 23 would make it in there as well. Probably John 3:16 as well. Unfortunately, though, we most often hear it in contexts that obscure its actual message. It is number one on the wedding hit list. And in that context, the bit that goes, if I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels but do not have love, you hear it at a wedding as, if I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels but do not have a special person who is the love of my life. Paul's hymn to love gets morphed into just another ode to the joys of having a soulmate, that special someone to have and to hold. That is definitely not what 1 Corinthians 13 is about. It's not opposing that, it's just got jack all to do with it. So, to get our heads around what Paul is actually saying here, we need to go back just half a verse. I can see, Margie, that you've got it open there, and find that little lost sentence that ties this reading to the previous chapter. So chapter 12 begins with Paul saying, now concerning spiritual gifts, siblings, I do not want you to be uninformed. Then there's all the stuff about how everyone is given different gifts from the same Spirit for the benefit of the whole body, and the stuff about the importance of everyone and their various gifts. And then there's the list of the important gifts and the encouragement to strive for them. And then comes the very end of the chapter and our little lost link. Can you, Margie, read that half verse right at the end of chapter 12? And I will show you a still more excellent way. Doesn't sound like much on its own, but hear it as it ties the two parts together. Chapter 12, strive for the greater gifts by all means, but I will show you a still more excellent way. If I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. Love is patient, love is kind, love bears all things, hopes all things, endures all things, love never ends. Unlike all of those other gifts which will come to an end. A still more excellent way. Can you hear what Paul is saying? So we mostly tend to think about what gifts we have and what other gifts other people have. We note that, say, Natalie is very gifted in this, but Gabby is particularly gifted in that. We often get trapped into doing it comparatively or maybe competitively at our own expense. That person is so much more gifted in that area than I am. If only I had the sort of gifts that that person has, I might be of better use to God or better use to the church or better use to the world. This might come up when we start to think about the sort of people to serve on, say, church council. We easily start weighing up particular gifts. That person runs a successful business. They'd be good. That person is a community organizer. We should absolutely have them on our church council. But, says Paul, I will show you a still more excellent way. I think to a large extent, what he is saying is that gifts do not matter very much when it comes to assessing your spiritual maturity. Everybody has gifts, and your gifts do matter, but they do not tell you anything important about the person. It's the same as saying you can't tell anything about the merits of a person by tallying up the monetary value of the Christmas presents that they receive. Gifts are gifts. They do not make you who you are. As an example, I consider it a gift to be brown, but my brownness is not what defines me. You might feel a similar way about your gender or sexuality or age or ethnicity or job or whatever might define you. It doesn't define you. Love, however, is different. To be a person who loves is not a gift that can be given to you. It is something that is cultivated and grown within you. Love comes from the core of your being, and the extent of your love reveals who you truly are. And God is love. That is the most significant one-word summary of the nature of God in Scripture. God is love. God equals love equals God. And so the more like God any person becomes, the more that love will be their obvious defining characteristic. Receiving the gift of, say, speaking in tongues or the gift of prophecy does not make you more like God. It is love that reveals what is God-like in you. And the incarnation of God in this small Palestinian Jewish refugee boy is perhaps the most loving thing God has done for God's creation. To make the choice to take on human flesh, human emotion, the full gamut that is humanity, in order to destroy any separation between human and divine. Maybe the incarnation of God was God choosing to express love fully and completely with God's creation, rather than separating or abstaining from it. Maybe incarnation was God laying down God's ego, God's crown, in order to make love the defining characteristic of who they are. And so, after all his concern that we not be uninformed about spiritual gifts, Paul now launches into this great hymn to love and relegates the spiritual gifts to a very much secondary significance. Let me rework 1 Corinthians 13 so that you hear it in a different way. If I am a wonderfully gifted preacher or a writer or a poet whose words move and inspire people and are quoted and are tweeted and perhaps even awarded, but I am not someone who loves, I am a noisy set of bagpipes or a blast of static. All of my words will count for nothing. And even if the church makes the mistake of putting me on a pedestal, God will weep over my failure to do the one thing that really matters: to love. To love God and to love others. To love even those who set themselves up as my enemies. And if I have prophetic powers and knowledge, if I can see to the heart of things and offer a devastating critique of the way the values of our society and the actions of our government and industry are marginalizing the needy and destroying the social and ecological fabric of the planet, and even if my prophetic critique inspires a grassroots movement of change and actually affects change, if I do not love, really love not just those who I find cool and attractive and fun, but those who are really hard to love, then all of my accomplishments, all of my words amount to nothing. And even if again the wider church hails me as the greatest prophet of my generation and puts me on its A-list preaching and teaching circuit, God will be weeping over my failure to become the one thing that really mattered: a person of love. And if I cultivate the most impressive range of socially and politically conscious virtues, if I have a grey water bucket in my shower and a free Gaza band on each wrist, if I voluntarily live on the equivalent of the dole and give the rest of my income to worthy causes, if I sponsor 20 African children, and if I serve meals every day at Newtown Mission, if I only eat organically grown food and regularly ring Kobe Shetty and Anthony Albanese to lobby on behalf of asylum seekers, and if I've been arrested several times for symbolic political actions, if I do all these things consistently for years, but do not simultaneously grow in my ability to generously love not just those who do zero of those things, but even those who think that I am wrong and that such things should not be done. So if I become more and more pure, but not more and more extravagantly loving, I've actually remained part of the problem and contributed next to nothing to the solution. And if I am faithfully at church every week, even when I too just want to sleep in, and if I set up the worship space and ensure that it is tidy and welcoming, if I lead 10 Bible studies and I visit 50 people and I volunteer for all of the things on the roster, and then become resentful of those who don't pull their weight, instead of growing in my capacity to love them and delight in serving them even when I am being taken advantage of, then all of my diligence is wasted and I've missed the point. I have missed the still more excellent way. I have invested in that which will pass away and not that which is eternal. Love is the only name of the game. Love is not in a hurry. Love wants what is best for the other person. Love does not begrudge them their successes or glory in being better than them. Love is not pushy or demanding or belittling. Love is willing to step aside and let others do it their way. Love is not always getting its nose out of joint or getting bitter over attention shown to others. Love hangs in there through thick and thin. Love is always ready to give people the benefit of the doubt and to take a chance on them. Love keeps believing that the best is yet to come. And love cannot be extinguished no matter what you hit it with. God is love. And in the end, only love matters. Now, we all know very little. But when we come to know ourselves as fully known, as known by God, as known in the depths of our being, then we will know ourselves known by love. We will know ourselves to be loved. We will know love. Then we will love in all its fullness. And love never ends. Everything else will pass away. But love is what we have come to know in God made flesh. Love is what we have been shown of God. God is love, and those who belong to God are transformed into the image of love. Truly, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Everything else will fall away, and love alone remains. This I know to be true. Amen.